Hey everybody, welcome to the latest edition of the Kolpack and Izzo Podcast, brought to you by Gate City Bank with the Forum's Jeff Kolpack. I'm Dom Izzo. North Dakota State returning to the Hoosier State for the first time since 2017. The Bison matching up with Indiana State for a noon kickoff Saturday. You'll see it live on WDAY. The Bison come in with a mark of 4-1 after knocking off Youngstown State last Saturday. Indiana State off a loss last week against Northern Iowa at 1-3. First time in 5 years that we have gone to Paradise. It's been a little bit.
Hey ho, off to Terre Haute we go.
Yeah. This is an odd spot. The first time I went was 2011, knowing full well, obviously, who went to school there and being Larry Bird. That was before the big statue was revealed a few years later. My first glimpse of it, and you had been there, I think, twice before I had, I was like, really? This is Division I football? And for those that are haven't seen it in 5 years, there's no stands on the Bison sideline. His own Memorial Stadium is, as Todd Golden told me yesterday on Hot Mic, is a 60-year-old facility. This is not a football haven, Kolpack. They are renowned in football history for having a 30-plus game losing streak that only got snapped a couple years before they beat the Bison in Fargo.
At some point, and I thought this would come 10 years ago, but there's always these renewed efforts in Terre Haute to, okay, we're going to put more into football. And then they maybe dip their toe in the water, and that was about as far as it went. Yeah. What is the population of Terre Haute? What would you guess?
You know the answer on this?
Yes.
Okay. 25,000?
60,000.
60?
60.
Holy
this
cow.
is not some, Jamestown Valley City in the middle of a prairie here.
I guess I thought it was. Holy cow.
It's only an hour from Indianapolis. Yep. It's not far from Chicago. You see where I'm getting at here?
Yep.
It's in a good recruiting area.
Indiana's not bad in football.
It's okay.
Yep.
The Hoosiers will get maybe their couple, but you can, if you got a facility.
Purdue's done pretty good. Purdue's done okay for itself. So,
but if you got a facility that just would be Division I standards, you could almost do some damage. Curt why would you take that job? Do you think you can turn that around? That's the question.
I asked him that.
What did he say?
He said absolutely. That we have 3 core beliefs here. We've hit 2 of them. The third one was winning the Missouri Valley Football Conference. He said, I don't know when that's going to happen.
Where does facilities rank in there?
Obviously, that was, I know, a sore subject. They have spent money. Probably it's not to the level of what they need to do, but for what he was open to achieve, they've hit 2 of the 3 goals that he has won. And you remember, what was his second year there? They bubbled up and won 7-4. They won 7 football games that year. I thought they should have been in the playoffs that season. So he's proven already you can win at that institution. I think you've pointed this out several times this week. I think the hangover, if that's not the right word, of them opting out, and that wasn't Mallory's decision. That was made at the presidential level of them not playing during the spring of 2021 has certainly hurt.
It's still there.
And obviously what happened, Kolpack in fall camp, I mean, you can't even, I don't even know, unimaginable is what Curt said to me when he was on the show on Thursday, of having 2 players pass away in a car accident in August when you're 2 weeks out before the season starts. I don't know how you respond from that.
I don't know either.
Yeah.
I don't know either. I just think that Terre Haute should band together as a community, because the IMG music is gone, right? Well, didn't they have some big music thing there? It was like the hub of CDs or something. That's not there anymore. What is Terre Haute? What is the definition? What defines it? And it would be great if the citizens could get together and pass a 0.5-cent sales tax and build a really cool football multi-purpose arena downtown. Indoor. You could have concerts there. It doesn't have to seat 19,000 like the Fargo Dome. 15,000 indoor facility, and it's a game changer. That's what the Dome did to Fargo. It changed the way we thought of ourselves. Because
do they care that much about football? Is the question. Is the age-old question. Everybody knows that it's the school that Larry Bird went to. They're a basketball school, and they can't. As much success as football may have, I don't know if they could ever shake that. Look at Kentucky. They're still fighting it, and they have a top 10 ranked FBS program now.
You build this to get, I don't know, the Chicks in there. They're not the Dixie Chicks, the Chicks, or the Rolling Stones in their last tour, or somebody of that stage, or the major market concert kind of venues. You could get some pretty good plays like the Gate City Theater has done in Fargo, some musicals, some ice shows, concerts, trade shows, just farm shows. It's still a farming state. I mean, a convention area, a half-cent sales tax is all. What that did for Fargo could never be measured properly.
No, I agree. I'll still go back to, and I get it. It's not just all about football, but people always think that NDSU owns the Fargo Dome, which they don't. It's owned by the city, but they think it's just for football. I think there's a small group of people that probably associate that. If that were to happen, in Terre Haute, do they care about football enough? I just don't know if that's the answer there.
Do you care about lifestyle enough? I guess would be my question. You'd have to sell it as a lifestyle changer.
Yeah, I don't know about that either.
Yeah.
People go about their day and just, you tweeted this out earlier this week. It's $5 for tickets to get in, everybody.
Memorial Stadium is just a train wreck. It is just a train wreck of a stadium.
That's a noose around the program. There's no other way to say that than that it's an anchor.
And everybody who watches an ESPN Plus game at Memorial Stadium, the camera is on the stand side, so all you see is a wall,
the grassy knoll over there,
some soccer parents in lawn chairs, and the opposing team.
Yeah.
That's all you see.
And that's what you're going to see on Saturday. We're going to do our best to dress it up as best we can, but that's what it is.
You never see any wide shots. Are you going to show wide shots?
I'm not the director, so I'm not in charge of that, but I think we will do our best to bring the game to the viewers in the Red River Valley. I can't answer that any better than that. I don't. We'll show who's there. Of the times I've gone, the 4 times I've gone there, there has been hit and miss with fans, just even by me, and I'm on the 50-yard line, and it's been every time we've been there, it's been relatively nice. It's been this time of year.
I think you're right.
The weather hasn't been an issue, and it's not going to be on Saturday from what we can see. So it's a tough job. And I asked Mallory about Murray State coming in as well, which he said, proximity-wise, that's a win for us. It's a total different viewpoint of when we talked to David Herbster about it, and we've talked to Matt Larson about the addition. Murray, Kentucky is a 2.5-hour drive from Terre Haute. That, for them, that's a bus trip. That makes a lot of sense to them, Jeff. And granted, they're in the basketball side of things in the Missouri Valley Conference, too.
There's another facility, football,
correct,
that at this point has stands on one side.
Yep.
Remember when Tim Miles took the Bison basketball team out to New Jersey Tech?
I do.
And we saw some of the highlights, and the wall was right behind the Bison bench. It looked like the YMCA.
Yeah, there were high schools that are better suited.
Way better.
New Jersey
There's
Tech.
junior highs that are way better.
This football program, they've only scored 3 offensive touchdowns so far this season, 1 receiving touchdown. They got shut out by Purdue. They played a tough schedule. North Alabama, we saw North Alabama is going to be, once they're eligible next year, is going to cause some waves, I think, in FCS.
I haven't seen it yet, but I'll take your word for it.
They lost in overtime to Indiana State. That's the one win. Sycamores got shut out at Purdue, played Montana and Terre Haute, and you applaud them for scheduling that game, but you know how that's going to go. They gave Northern Iowa a tough game last week on the road in Cedar Falls, and now, as you wrote about today, their rushing defense is nothing to sneeze at. They're doing all right against the run.
24th in the FCS, and against some pretty good teams, too. So it's not like they're playing Drake and North Carolina A&T. On that note, NDSU 57th in rushing defense. That's not a good sign.
That took a hit last week with what happened against Jaleel McLaughlin. The numbers didn't help of what happened there last week.
I look at Indiana State offense, and Gavin Screws is a starting quarterback, 51 and 94, 54%. Had his arm in a sling if he still doesn't, according to Curt Mallory this week. I don't expect him to play. I would go in a different route anyway, whether he's hurt or not.
Yeah, I asked him about that as well. I think Screws has 1 touchdown and 5 picks. Cade Chambers is the backup that likely is probably going to go if Screws doesn't play. They have used 3 quarterbacks, I think, almost every game so far this season. So it's not been just one guy is going to get all the snaps, but it would not surprise me if we see a different guy.
And maybe you change philosophy and go with one guy.
Maybe. Yeah, well, he wants to. It's much like with NDSU at middle linebacker. Nobody has separated themselves yet to be the guy at quarterback. Like he got a couple years ago. Remember, he got the transfer from Iowa, Ryan Boyle, who was a really good player for him for his first 2 years at Indiana State. They have yet to find. I was going through the 2 deep yesterday, doing my charts for the game, Kolpack, of both offense and defense from last year. And they didn't have a ton of seniors last year. I think they only have 4 starters back on both sides, not counting Dante Hendricks. I mean, that's completely blown up.
They had a boatload of 5th, 6th-year seniors last year.
And most of those guys weren't starting, though, last year.
Yeah.
That's the scary part. What they've changed on their 2 deep is almost completely different from what you're seeing in 2022.
I mean, they're big enough. You look across the line,
Yeah.
310, 320, 310, 6'6", 6'4", 6'5". I mean, they got some size.
Yep.
That's not the issue. But size, to me, in O-line play these days means nothing.
Much different than what it used to. No doubt about that. Dante Hendricks is a guy to watch. He's caught a pass in 30 straight games. Number 8 wide receiver for Indiana State. Somebody's got to get him the ball, as Kolpack will point that out to me before I even get too far down the road on that. And they don't really. Justin Dinka is their number 1 running back who had an explosive touchdown against Montana, but the Bison defense will be ready to go, I think, for this game.
They
on
expect
Saturday.
T. Hodge, running back. He was a 3-star out of Tennessee.
Yep.
Went to University of Tennessee. Didn't see much playing time. Transferred here.
Dinka's a transfer from San Diego State to get to Terre
Yeah,
Haute.
he hardly played there, but that's what you do at Indiana State. You got to go to the portal.
Absolutely, you got to find a way to get whoever you can.
So many quarterbacks out there. I'm surprised they still haven't landed like the guy who's
like they did a couple years ago.
Right.
You know, that's not been the case. I mean, Screws the transfer from Troy and then Butler Community College before he got to Indiana State. One of their other backups is also transferred from Colorado State. So you see how
But what did they do there? What did they do at Troy and Colorado State?
Nothing. So that's, writing's on the wall on that. Let's shift gears and chat about the Bison. We mentioned the win over Youngstown. Didn't come without some injury as well. Jake Kava, another defensive lineman, defensive end from Shanley, is going to be lost for the season, Jeff, with a torn pectoral muscle. Another defensive lineman gone, joining Eli Mostart. We don't know if Eli will come back sometime later this season. Jake's a senior, 5th-year guy who I think was playing maybe his best football over the last few games.
It's such a hard piece of news because he was the quintessential walk-on from a Fargo school that worked his way up and was making great contributions. Look at the number of defensive linemen the Bison have lost counting last year. So this year you got Eli Mostart, Kava out. Last year you lose Wagey. Well, he's back this year.
I'm just saying, but they didn't have him last year. Just an injury. They didn't have him last year.
But Costner Ching, Tucker, Braden Thomas. Who am I missing? They missed
Logan McCormick,
and the guy Beto.
Michael Beto. Yep, those 5 guys are pretty good.
And so these 2. That's 7 guys.
Correct.
You don't have on the D line that you had last year.
It's a lot. It's nothing to sneeze at considering of what they have. And now you've got, Jackson Dute never got his first career sack against Youngstown State. I think he's starting to play a little bit better. Cody Heisman's getting some more snaps. Certainly they're going to have more there. And Dylan Hendricks is a name you're going to hear on Saturday. He dressed for the first time this past week against Youngstown State. He did not play. You and I have each done stories on this guy who came back from a broken neck. Rugby player out of Wisconsin, former linebacker that's moved to defensive end, and he's good. I talked to him on Tuesday. He's over the moon, Jeff, about getting his first chance to get out there and play, and looks like that may happen on Saturday. They're going to need him now.
Well, they're going to need somebody.
Yeah,
they're going to need somebody to take up the slack. I think they've had some guys not develop. I think Reed Ryan's in his 3rd or 4th year, still trying to crack the 2 deep. Hasn't happened yet, and they're playing. They're like Kelton McCaslin right now. They're talking about a true freshman playing.
McCaslin and Logan Larson are both working with the first team, both true freshmen that I don't know if they'll play this week, but their services are going to, I think, to be needed down the road.
Well, if you're gonna do the hockey shift line like they always do on defensive line, you are. There's no other way to go about it.
Which is again not in the cards of how they wanted this to go on the defensive line.
I think Wagey's going to have to play 80% of the snaps now, whether it be DN or they moved him inside at times.
That's certainly not what the plans were at the start of the season, but that's reality of where they're at. And I think you bring up a good point, because we always talk on and this is not to hammer on certain guys on that haven't panned out, but we talk about, this guy worked out. There are some that just don't. And that's happened at that
that's
position.
Life. That's recruiting.
Right. I think Cole Menz is another guy to keep an eye on. Entz loves him. He's another walk-on from Cheyenne that I've seen him play a few times, and he's come up to me. 55, I've noticed his number out there, that you're going to see him play a bit more too.
Yeah, but that's where you're at,
Yep.
in the defensive line. So, you go back to our Kyle Emanuel when he was a senior in his award-winning year. He played a lot.
Because he did not come off the field.
Right.
Him and Hardy played a ton of football.
There just wasn't the depth at DN, so that's what they rolled with.
And you remember that year? They also rolled
and that
out,
was a Buck Buchanan award.
Well, they
winner.
also rolled out a true freshman that year, and Greg Menard, that by the end of the season was playing a ton of reps. And I'm not saying any of these guys can compare to what Greg was, but that they may be in the same boat they were in 2014 when they had those kind of injuries, and Menard ended up playing a ton of football that year for him.
Yeah, but it still was in a spot role. They went with those two guys, and especially when it counted in the playoffs.
Menard played more than you remember.
Did he?
He played a lot of snaps that year. I wouldn't say was he high impact like he was eventually as his career turned out. Maybe not, but he made some plays. Western Illinois, I'll never forget a play he made there in the game that the Bison were behind in that game. So we'll see. Hendricks is a guy to keep an eye on, though. This is a perfect game for a guy like him who hasn't played yet to get his feet wet against Indiana State before next week, when they certainly are going to need great tackling against South Dakota State when the Jacks come to the Dome.
And South Dakota State and South Dakota as a big clash. Is it? I mean, I know it's not a trap game, probably per se.
It's overlooked Saturday totally for each of those teams.
Okay,
because each are heavily favored to win. And knowing full well what's up next week, the Jacks may have it easier because they're at home, and maybe not, because South Dakota beat South Dakota State last year in the Vermiracle, so maybe they're not looking past it. But it's hard not to, Jeff, when you see, hey, who's up next on the schedule? You know exactly what's there.
Dom, I just want to go 1-0 in this pregame show.
I'm sure
I don't want to
you do.
screw it up. I don't want to look ahead to next week's pregame show.
You also had the news on Noah Gindorf, which became official on Monday, that he had a second surgery and that his Bison career is done. It's disappointing on a couple angles there, knowing he came back, Jeff, for a 6-year specifically to enhance his NFL career. And right now that's kind of in question about what his football prospects are right now.
Well, I got to believe he's doing the surgery and then he's going to give it a shot.
Yep.
I mean, why wouldn't you?
Yep.
If you've been mentioned. Now, the problem is, he's probably not going to get into an all-star game.
Probably not.
So you're going to have to make it work, and he's not going to get in the combine. It's going to have to be NDSU Pro Day.
Is going to have to be, and individual workouts is going to be where, he can talk to his good buddy Ben Ellison, because you remember the combine, all that got wiped out because of the pandemic. Him and Derek Tuska both had to they were shooting videos of themselves of trying to appeal to NFL teams because there weren't any visits. At least Gindorf would have that route if he wanted to make a shot to the NFL. Now, on the Bison side of things, that means we've talked about Stuffle enough, but I think Hunter Brosio has got enough athletic ability, if people saw that downfield catch, that maybe he's the next guy at tight end, because Lipke's obviously out there too, but Brosio's name has certainly got to be mentioned now.
You know that on that catch, that was a phantom holding call on Cody Mock.
It totally was.
The guy just fell down dang near.
Terrible call.
Cody just went like this, wiped out a nice catch from Brosio. Maybe he's the next guy. He showed something on that deep pass.
I think so.
But he's not the size of Gindorf. It gives you a different, the tight ends now are a different look with, Stuffle's 6'3", 248, something like that. Gindorf was 6'6", 266.
Yeah. There's no getting away with that.
Josh Babbage was 6'6". So now there's a little different look. Probably maybe more of an issue in the red zone when you like to have those bigger bodies.
Finn Diggins is a name to keep an eye on. If the game maybe plays out the way that some think, that maybe the young kid from Perham can get out there and get some reps as well.
I saw him make some pretty good plays in fall practice in the limited time I saw.
He's 6'4", 247. So that you talk about the frame of what you're looking at, that kid right there, redshirt freshman from Perham, is exactly what
quarterback in high school.
Yeah,
has that athleticism.
He was a dynamite athlete in high school. He was good at everything, basketball and baseball. So that's something to watch there. Kobe Johnson, I know, left the game with an ankle injury. I saw him yesterday walking fine. He looks like he's going to be good to go. So the running back room will be set. Offensive line had Nash Jensen not play last week. I think if that was a playoff game, Nash
He would have played.
played.
That's the sense I got.
But Grace Abel didn't miss a beat. I mean,
You couldn't tell.
That's the remarkable thing about that group up there, Jeff. And Cody Malk won another Offensive Lineman of the Week award last week. Just they are playing at an unreal level right now in the offensive line.
And I still like Brandon Westberg at center and moving Sundell to a guard position. I like
can't
that
get
look.
in the lineup right now. He
And
can't get out there.
He's probably the second best center in the league.
It just tells you what kind of depth they have. And Zabel will be starting anywhere else. Anywhere else, he'd be a starter. He can't break the lineup at NDSU, though, right now, which is
They seem to be
crazy.
fine with it, though.
Yeah. I mean, it's literally they roll out who they got, and they know if you saw they're moving the pile like that, who would you take out? You know what I mean? It's like they're having the kind of success that they are having there. I will point out at wide receiver, Phoenix Sproul's got a catch on Saturday. Just maybe that's the route they're going to go.
Not to find the one guy. I've kind of given up on that, too.
Think so.
I think it's just a committee.
I think so, too. I know Braylon Henderson had the opportunity, had a couple nice catches at South Dakota. I know they threw the deep ball to him that didn't work. Jake Lippy had another reception, I think, on Saturday against Youngstown. It's going to be by committee, Kolpack. I don't think you're going to have – you certainly don't have the Watson element on this team, but you don't have the Zach Vra or the Ryan Smith element on this team either.
And you look at the guys that haven't seen the field, Bryce Lance comes to mind.
Yep.
Is he going to ever take that next step, or is he going to get the opportunity?
Yep.
The true freshman, Hagerly and
Makai
Collins from
yep.
Mankato, I think they're not going to – sounds like they may not play this year.
DJ Hart had a nice reception. We thought Eli Green may get out there. That's just is not.
I saw him make a ton of plays in
and he had
fall,
a good spring.
Fall camp.
Green had a good spring and into fall, and that just is not translated yet to more playing time. We're not there. We're not making those decisions.
We just named like 10 guys.
I know it. Just that part is interesting to see where things go. I will say, and this is total speculation, I think this is a big Cole Payton game on Saturday. I think Cole had a 20-yard run early in that game against Youngstown, another 10-yard run that you asked me on the video vlog Monday, are we going to see him throw? I think the answer is yes.
You think they're going to give him a chance to win the job?
Speculation. No, I'm just saying that they're going to expand it even more because of who's playing next week. You always tell me you got to put as much on tape.
I don't say that answers that.
Well,
I'm more of you save it for the Jazz.
Maybe, but I think you might give them a little bit more on tape this week that you may actually see the big lefty throw the football a couple times.
A couple of those runs, you notice that he took a little stutter step and like a delay step. I think you're going to see that formation, the delay step, and then stop and throw instead of run.
Oh, I see.
Watch this.
Okay. All right.
They're setting that up.
Okay. For next week?
I would.
Yeah. That's the kitchen sink game. Not Arizona. Next week is the kitchen sink game.
Yeah, Jason Eck not being no coordinator. I don't know if it's going to be the kitchen sink anymore from the
South Dakota State.
Angle.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's a whole other wrinkle that we'll get to next week on that. I want to get one topic in here before we say goodbye. And I know you saw this yesterday from the NCAA Transformation Committee. CBS Sports reported this, that the requirements for Division I tournaments could be modified, which includes March Madness and all the other Division I postseason tournaments that would allow as much as 25% of a sports teams to be able to qualify for the said sports NCAA bracket, which means for basketball, you could have a 90-team NCAA men's and women's basketball tournament.
No, we can't do that.
I'm not a fan of that.
No.
For FCS football,
no,
you could go up to 32.
No.
It would be 32. There's 130 teams this year. That would mean 32 teams would make the postseason in FCS.
That means everybody would have a first-round game.
Correct.
And so your higher-rated teams would theoretically play...
You're playing 17 football games if you made it all the way to Frisco. Play 17.
Yeah, no.
That's an NFL season now. I'm of the mindset to go back to 16, which they'll never do. Or go back to 20.
I would say yes more than going up.
Yeah, I would say let's cut down. They're never going to do that.
We're going the PC angle of youth athletics. Let's just give everybody a medal.
I think the momentum of expansion of the bracket has been stymied a bit because of the unknowing of the conferences, like the Ohio Valley and the Atlantic Sun are going to join for bids next year. And the A-Sun and the WAC are combined right now. So there aren't bids out there, Jeff, because I think that's what Patty Viverito told me. Say, hey, if more conferences are going to claim automatic bids, I want to see the bracket expand. But since there are less automatic bids, I think they're going to be only 10 next season. That means 14 at larges. If you're not one of the 14 at larges, then get out. If you're not that good to get in, then you don't deserve to be in the postseason.
What did the great Stillwater High School coach George Stoll once say? He said, let's give everybody a trophy at the beginning of the year, and at the end, if you feel you didn't earn it, give it back.
Ooh, that's not bad. I don't mind that.
That was like 20 years ago. That was when Minnesota started splitting football classes.
Can you imagine 90 teams for the NCAA basketball tournament?
It's way too much. 64 is such a great number.
That's 68, by the way.
Well, I know, but I know you're going to say that.
90
but
is
it's
a
64
ton.
for all practical purposes. That's a good number.
The only reason why, and you're going to roll your eyes at me, would be television. If they can make more money and have a higher television deal, then they'll do it. Greg Sankey's leading the way on this.
Well, then
SEC
maybe the
commissioner.
Power 5 should break away.
Well, Sankey's leading this because he wants to see the baseball tournament expand. The baseball tournament is 64, but was unhappy about, I think, Mississippi State, who ended up winning it, was like the last team in. So some of these sports are going to grow.
Well, 90, that means the entire Power 5 will get in somehow. I mean, you got to be really bad.
Yeah, there's no argument there.
You got to be 5-24 not to get in if you're a Big Ten team.
I will not argue that one bit, but that's something to just keep an eye on here is the coming weeks on that, because the Transformation Committee has to announce some transformations. They haven't done anything yet, which I know former NDSU President Dean Brashani was on that, and we still haven't heard bupkis out of them. We don't know what the heck's going on that. So something to just keep our eyes on. Should we do some picks here before we go? As we look at the games this week, again, I'll shake my head at like teams 11 through 20 in the FCS poll. It's tough sledding right now to determine who may be good. But we'll go to the Valley here's a game to figure out who may be good. Southern Illinois at Missouri State on Saturday. Bears have lost 3 in a row.
They're on the skids, and I thought last week would have been their game where they said, okay, the alarm has sounded, and that didn't happen. Nope. I'm sticking with the slide. I think things, yeah.
SIU has owned this series over the last couple of years.
SIU, where's the game at?
It's in Springfield.
So SIU, another tough road game. Yep. They went to Illinois State and won on a controversial call last week. But Speaking
of slides, SIU has won 3 in a row, and most states lost 3 in a row.
I'm sticking with the trend. I'm sticking with SIU.
Okay, I picked
Jason Shelley's not had a good year.
No. I picked Missouri State the last 2 weeks. How's that worked out for me?
Not
lost both times.
I'm in the same boat.
I'm going to go with SIU. I think they will win this game. Yeah. If Missouri State loses this game, are they done at 4 losses? They'd have to run the table. They'd have to win their last 5.
And that means they would get in on a winning streak, and that would help. But it's not looking promising at 4 the way things are going. Though the schedule lightens up for them.
Totally is, and they don't play the Bison, which is a huge deal for them, that they could still do it at 7-4.
Yeah, they could still get in.
I'm wondering, though, on the transfer angle on that, if they've given up on Petrino now. With the amount of transfers they've had, and if they were to lose this game...
Oh, the players.
Yes.
They've checked out.
If they were to lose to SIU,
that's
on
the
Saturday.
danger of the transfer portal. You know, you get guys that aren't fully vested in a program. Things go south.
Look out!
It doesn't take long.
Same time, 2:00 kickoff on Saturday in Brookings, South Dakota at South Dakota State. The Vermiracle last year. Do the Coyotes have any magic on Saturday?
No, it's just been too up and down for the Coyotes this year, and I like South Dakota State's defense.
Jack's defense is really good. I think they win this game by a couple touchdowns. Out in the CAA, how about this game, Kolpack? 5-0 Delaware at 4-1 William & Mary. This is a big game in the CAA.
We forget about Nolan Henderson, who was okay in 19, but has just gotten better. Now, This is 3 years later.
Yep.
And I'm talking about when NDSU was at Delaware. So I like Delaware. I like the fact they have a really established good quarterback. A guy is a dual threat, one of the best in the country.
The Blue Hens ready to take the mantle from James Madison as the team?
Well, we'll see in the playoffs. I mean, they got to prove it in the playoffs, but they're first up for sure.
I like Delaware on the road here, too. I think they go in there and beat William & Mary. Nolan Henderson's a good player. He was way better than Pat Kehoe. I don't know why the old coach Danny Rocco kept throwing Keogh out there. He was slow and the
he
ball
was a statue.
It was not good. Henderson has been really good. Back in the Valley, Illinois State at Northern Iowa. Here, the Panthers, the second game of this 4-game homestand. They've won 2 in a row after an 0-3 start.
Yeah, just Illinois State's just, again, it's just sort of out there team. They brought in Zach Annexstad.
Yep.
I can never say that. Annexstad for court, and he's been okay. Yeah. It just hasn't been the dynamic playmaking ability that you thought a former Gopher would provide in an FCS program. And so I'm sticking with Northern Iowa at home. I know it wasn't a big win over Indiana State, but Indiana State's better. Yep. So I'm sticking with the Unidome.
I like you. I'll take UNI there. Game I think everybody in this part of the world will be watching. 5:00 Saturday night. UND at Youngstown State. Doug Phillips said yesterday it'll be a game time decision on who his starting quarterback will be, either Demetric Crenshaw or Mitch Davidson against the Fighting Hawks.
Yeah, who would you go with?
Davidson.
Yeah, well, we'll see. I think.
Although Crenshaw tore up UND last year, he was really good against the Fighting Hawks in the Alara Center.
Again, Youngstown, like Indiana State's a much improved team in the interior. UND, again,
got to show it to me on the road.
Got to show it on the road.
You got to win a conference road game. Danny Freund told me that on Hot Mic on Thursday. He said it. We have to win a conference road game.
I thought McLaughlin is so good.
Yes.
But it's too bad Youngstown, for them, doesn't have a better home field advantage. But it is a night game out on the East Coast. Yep. And so I'm going with Youngstown because of that.
Okay.
It's tough playing there at night. It's a different vibe.
Bison had a classic out there at overtime in 2017.
That was a night game.
That was a night game there. I'm going to take UND. I think they finally get a conference road win. And they've got a bye week next week, and then they get ready for the Jacks. So they could be 4-2 with South Dakota State coming to the Alaris if they're able to get this one. This is a big one. Tommy Schuster's been really good. 7 touchdowns, just 2 picks so far this season. Let's see how I think they're going to get this one on the road on Saturday. Last one, your friends in Greeley, Northern Colorado at unbeaten Sac State. Sac State got to get challenged before they play Montana in a couple weeks or no?
Not this weekend. Okay. No, Northern Colorado, I don't even know. Do you ever hear about them anymore, right?
Other than Ed McCaffrey's their coach. They're 2-3. Surprisingly, they've won 2 football games already this season.
Who'd they beat?
Yeah, I knew you were going to ask me that. How much you want to bet that was against a Division I opponent?
Was it Western State?
They beat Idaho State, who's god-awful, and then Lamar, who's also not very good. They lost by 20 to Idaho last weekend. So, who, by the way, is going to be good soon. That's speaking of Jason Eck. Yep. That's where he went. So, Sac State's for real. I think the Hornets they got it together here.
A lot of people in the Big Sky love their coach.
Troy Taylor's a good guy. He knows what he's doing there. I think Sac State will win that game. We will have a huge day for you on Saturday. Bison Game Day. Get you started at 10 a.m. Steve Tutsy's going to join us. That's going to be great. Michael Tutsy's dad with what did he say, about 50 family members?
At least.
That are going to be there from the Indianapolis area. It's an hour south from Indianapolis to Terre Haute that are going to be at the game on Saturday.
$5 tickets. Why not? Gobble them up.
Apparently the Webbers and the Tutsys are going to be staying together as well, which seems fitting for 2 guys who've been playing together for 6 years. And then, of course, our Farmers Union Insurance kickoff show gets going at 11:50, and then the game shortly after noon. So you get back home early, Kolpack. There you go.
Yeah,
I
love these noon games. I just love them.
North Dakota State, Indiana State. You'll see it live on WDAY. For Jeff Kolpack, I'm Dom Izzo. That's the latest Kolpack and Izzo podcast, brought to you by Gate City Bank.